Envision yourself completely alone in the thick of the Amazon jungle, with no means of transportation whatsoever. Time passes, and as you feel both physically and mentally drained, the prospect of surviving becomes a distant dream. In this video, we hear the tale of Yosi Ginsburg, someone who endured 20 terrifying days in the forest, alone. Yosi Ginsburg was an intrepid 22-year-old in 1981, consumed by a hunger for adventure and an insatiable curiosity about the world. The Amazon's size and mystique had always captivated him. Karl Ruprechter, a mysterious foreigner who claimed to be a geologist, enticed Yosi and 3 other travelers, Marcus, Kevin, and Karl, into what seemed to be the ultimate adventure, promising an expedition deep into the uncharted jungle. Unfortunately, Karl was untruthful. There was no validity to his claims of undiscovered territory, hidden tribes, or untold riches, and their lack of preparation for what awaited them in the bush only made matters worse. Surviving that intricate, unforgiving labyrinth was far from guaranteed. What began as a seemingly harmless quest soon shifted in tone. The jungle, lush and teeming with life, initially lured them deeper, but the mood quickly changed. Unrelenting humidity, swarms of biting insects, and a merciless terrain began to wear them down. Marcus suffered the most. Anguish engulfed him. After days of trudging through soggy mud, his feet blistered and became infected. The pain was so intense that even walking became a torment due to extensive skin damage. Eventually, the group decided to split. Kevin and Yosi built a raft to cross the rivers while Karl and Marcus set off on foot, hoping to find their way back to civilization. Yosi never saw Karl and Marcus again. Disaster loomed on the raft. Ahead of them, the mighty Tweechy River rumbled. What had seemed like calm waters suddenly erupted into violent rapids. The river tore the 2 men apart. Kevin, strong and determined, battled the currents and finally reached the shore. Yosi, however, was dragged downstream, thrashing with all his might. He found himself utterly alone, deep in a jungle that showed no mercy to the unprepared. Now, survival depended entirely on his instincts and sheer will. He had barely any supplies. The brutal landscape rendered his single pocketknife almost useless. Still, he clung to hope during those first few days. He wished, desperately, that Kevin had made it safely, and that someone might come looking for him. But as time passed, hope gave way to despair. Being alone in the Amazon made every moment feel like a countdown to death. He wasn't just prey to the jungle, it was as if the forest played with him. The predators were ever present. At night, jaguars prowled. Venomous snakes slithered through the foliage, silent and deadly, and the constant threat of spiders loomed. He couldn't sleep. Every rustle of leaves, every chirp or buzz could spell danger. One night he awoke to a soft hissing sound beside him. Just inches away, a coral snake, one of the jungle's most poisonous creatures, was slowly moving past. One bite could end his life in minutes. He froze. Fortunately, the snake continued on its way. After that encounter, Yosi became even more aware of the looming dangers around him. A compulsive obsession with food took hold. Starvation clawed at him constantly. He survived on wild herbs, fruits, and raw fish he sometimes managed to catch with his bare hands. In desperation, he even cracked open bird eggs and drank the contents, hoping the small bit of nourishment would be enough to keep him going. But he was more concerned about something else entirely. After days of relentless trekking, his feet, already bruised and battered, had become infected. With each painful step, the damage worsened. Blood seeped from open cuts and scrapes, and he feared gangrene was setting in. Little by little, the forest seemed determined to break him, yet his time in the jungle was far from over. One day, Yosi stumbled into a thick swamp. The solid ground beneath him suddenly gave way to quicksand. As he thrashed, it gripped his legs and began pulling him under, inch by inch. For hours he fought back, his strength ebbing away. Distracted and disoriented, he wondered, was this the end? Was he about to be swallowed whole by the forest, buried alive beneath the vines and mud? In a final act of desperation, Yosi managed to free himself, collapsing onto the riverbank, gasping for breath. He had barely escaped. The psychological toll of surviving alone in the wild was beginning to show. Yosi started hallucinating. Strange figures, some familiar and some not, appeared among the trees, calling his name, beckoning him to follow. But every time he reached out to touch them, they vanished. And then came the bugs. In the suffocating jungle heat, swarms of termites, mosquitoes, and fire ants descended on him, leaving his skin covered in welts and blisters. The torment was endless. By day 19, Yosi was almost unrecognizable. Starved and skeletal, his skin hung loosely from his frame. He had no sense of how far he'd wandered, no idea how much longer he could last. Then, he heard a sound. A plane. In that moment, survival surged back into focus. Kevin was still alive. Against all odds, he had convinced the local authorities to launch a search for Yosi. Planes had been scanning the jungle for days, searching for any sign of life. But the forest concealed him well. Beneath its dense canopy, Yosi remained invisible to the outside world. Even so, he refused to give up. He dragged his broken body into the underbrush, clinging to life with sheer willpower, determined to make it through just one more day. Finally, on the 20th day, they found him. Two indigenous men, continuing the search, discovered Yosi lying beside a riverbank. He was incredibly weak, but he was alive. He had survived the impossible. Yosi Ginsburg had faced down the fiercest trials the Amazon could offer. He had endured predators, quicksand, starvation, and even his mind, and yet he had made it. But not everyone was so fortunate. Carl and Marcus were never seen again. The jungle swallowed them whole, and their fate remains a mystery. There are still secrets buried deep in the twisted black heart of the Amazon. Turn on alerts and subscribe for more stories of the strange and unexplained. Stay strong until we meet again.